That was it? Do it again.
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, just when you thought Iceborne had provided all it was going to provide, you hit another new monster. Well, in this case, you hit a few. But today, the good boy we'll be talking about is Tigrex, but somehow better.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Brute Tigrex, then, is a classic subspecies of Tigrex focused way more on roaring and sound in general. And as far as the old games went, his fight was just sort of 90% regular Tigrex with a little bonus on top. Iceborne's Brute Tigrex, like old game Brute, only has a few actual changes, but the ways in which he uses them and the frequency that they come into play means that unlike the old game Brute Tigrex, Iceborne's Brute feels like an actually different monster with just a familiar base. Visually speaking, this is just straight up better Tigrex. I'm sure some people will disagree with me due to nostalgia of regular Tigrex, or maybe you're just a big fan of the color blue in particular, but I think that Brute Tigrex looks way better than regular Tigrex, with a combination of his generally different color scheme as well as his new patterning, which lore-wise are a result of his habit to choose extreme environments such as the volcanoes and deserts as habitats, though in Iceborne the place you will first encounter him is after raising the Rotten Vale region in your guiding lands to level 6, which can be done after reaching MR 70. At the end of the day though, design-wise, it's the little details that can always make something interesting in Monster Hunter, and this detail may just be entirely made up in my head, but I could swear the little wing arm flaps on Brute are a bit different from regular Tigrex, the little pointy bits a bit more emphasized, sort of like Batman's cape.
No kicks!
Probably the most interesting thing about Brute Tigrex from a lore standpoint is simply the reason for his existence, because theoretically he is the way he is because he lives in extreme weather and remote locations. The weather causing the shell change and the remote location, well, causing the increased lung power, because, and I quote, his old roar was not easily heard in harsher volcanic environments. So yeah, he learned how to yell louder, I guess.
Right.
And just for the sake of saying it, because I am incredibly self-centered, I fucking called it! I told you guys regular Tigrex's roar was nerfed in Iceborne because we'd have Brute coming in later. I knew it would happen, and here he stands, and here I stand smugly! Surprised no one's punched me in the face yet for being this smug. I'm just saying, my detective skills are legendary! As for the fight itself then, the Iceborne Brute Tigrex has some major modifications, to the point where it actually is easier to compare him to New World's base Tigrex than even Old World Brute Tigrex, especially because he does have a lot of similarities, just in an interesting way. Brute Tigrex is somehow both familiar and exciting, like meatloaf with scorpion peppers. Starting on the physical side then, Brute Tigrex has a few new combos up his sleeve, nothing hugely mind-breaking, but just different ways of combining the regular Tigrex moves, including this little paw slam arm sweep to it combo that got me a number of times before I caught on to the pattern. Brute Tigrex's downtime between attacks, meaning his recovery time, seems to be a bit shorter than regular Tigrex as well, meaning he feels much faster, but in a very natural way. You still have the same amount of time to dodge the individual attacks, but the attacks themselves will come around just a touch quicker.
That's the most badass thing I've ever heard.
And aside from that, the main change that Brute Tigrex actually has is his roar. Iceborne's base Tigrex only really does his damaging roar upon enraging, and before doing it, he back ejects, which essentially makes it significantly harder to get hit by this attack than it is to just avoid it. Brute Tigrex, however, starts by throwing the back eject out the window. That's right, every time he roars, it will be as in your face as he can possibly be, and he uses it just a tiny bit more than regular Tigrex, by which I mean ridiculously frequently. Brute's roars not only can damage you, but will damage you with a bit higher range on that portion of the attack, but also a massive range on the flinch effect itself, which with a normal monster would just be a slight inconvenience. Brute Tigrex, however, doesn't just roar once in a while, he roars constantly after every couple of attacks, oftentimes literally weaving these awesome giant roars into his combos. And while this isn't the most threatening thing in the world, it absolutely totally changes the pace of a Tigrex fight, arguably even more than it would be changed by stabbing him in the back.
Et tu, Brute?
And on top of that, because of course there had to be something on top of that, Brute Tigrex has been taking a lesson or two from the final boss, because he now has the ability to create a fucking sonic beam in front of him. It's crazy, it's unnatural, and it feels so weird in a Tigrex fight, and just knowing that it could happen at any moment really spices the whole thing up. At the end of the day, the number of overarching mechanical changes is pretty small. However, the individual changes to the moveset and the combos using those changes have a massive effect on the fight. And most notably, as mentioned earlier, the pace of the fight is totally off-putting in a very, very good way. It is unique and it is particularly enjoyable, and honestly, more than any of this, I'm just extremely happy to see a version of Tigrex this deep into the endgame of Iceborne, because Tigrex is a fantastic monster, and any excuse to fight more Tigrex, whether he be regular or brute, is just an absolute win in my book. When it comes to the armor then, we have something truly gorgeous, another redesign of older game armor, but just like Brute Tigrex himself, the armor looks way, way better in the new world. The alpha is awesome, and the beta, surprisingly, is also awesome, but with a little half helmet so you can show off your fluffy pink hair.
Oh no!
Skill-wise as a whole, the alpha set has 8 attack boost, which is literally more than the skill benefits from, 3 health boost, 3 recovery up, 3 weakness exploit, 3 agitator, and a single rank of free meal. The beta set has 6 attack boost, 3 weakness exploit, 2 health boost, 2 recovery up, 2 agitator, and again, a single rank of free meal, with both sets having the regular Tigrex 3 set of free meal secret, which, if you haven't seen it yet, is absolutely ridiculous. 75% chance of not using an item really adds up. This armor set is actually pretty damn great. Of course, the alpha set itself has skills a little too hedged in one direction for making a proper build off of, considering the fact that it has, for some reason, 8 attack, but the beta, honestly, as a full set, is something you could make a pretty effective basic damage build off of using all 5 pieces. Just fill out the jewel slots with tons of crit stuff and go to town. In terms of mixed set usage, the pieces that truly stand out on an individual level are the beta chest with 2 attack boost, 1 weakness exploit, a 4 slot, and a 1 slot, as well as the beta arms with 2 health boost, 2 attack boost, and a 4 slot on top. This armor actually really excites me. It gives us some interesting off pieces with the potential of an actual high-end damage build that could take advantage of free meal secret, which not only for regular quests, but especially for the guiding lands, would be a very fun skill to have around. As far as the weapons go, the Brute Tigrex has some neat ones. Visually speaking, they are just the Tigrex weapon that your tree already had, but with a color change to match the Brute's color scheme. But statistically here, we have some absolutely unique weapons. Purple reachable sharpness, and boasting the highest draw of anything we've unlocked so far, or at least projected to in the case of the ones that we don't see the final rank of, but with super hefty negative affinity. In Iceborne, for many weapons, this is a death sentence, but for the builds that either don't rely on affinity, or instead have a reliable way of hitting high affinity and overpowering the negative crit, such as crit draw builds, these weapons could actually find a very interesting position. Also, can we just spend a moment and talk about how Hammer got screwed over? Literally every weapon, every single weapon has a Brute Tigrex version, either with its own tree or as the end of the regular Tigrex weapon tree, except for Hammer.
But why?
As far as I can tell, there's literally no reason for this, so why Hammer? All in all then, Brute Tigrex is a fantastic and fresh experience, offering a nice challenge while still being quite enjoyable and providing a completely different fight for hunters from both the old world and the new. The changes by themselves may be slight, but the way that they affect the whole fight is massive, like a ripple in the ocean turning into a tidal wave by the time it hits the shores. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been Brute Tigrex. Do you like Iceborne's Brute Tigrex? What other monsters would you like to see in this series? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes. When they're watching us play video games, when we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or important news about the Kingdom Animalia. Rage, Cotton, and Hollow are all here, talking about the things you want to hear, so if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros. There's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.